Hello and welcome to NACIC World Podcast. The NACIC World Podcast aims to uplift, inspire, motivate, and to encourage personal growth and introspection. I am your host, RJ, and hope to help you connecting to your inner spirit. Welcome back to NACIC World Podcast. Today I want to speak about living in China as a foreigner and celebrating Chinese New Year in China. Chinese New Year is also known as the Spring Festival. It is the biggest holiday of the year here in China. It is basically like Christmas and Thanksgiving sort of rolled in one big massive celebration. Chinese New Year is also the largest annual migration across the world because people travel far and wide to reach their hometowns to celebrate with their relatives. It is estimated that nearly 70% of China's population normally travels during the Chinese New Year period. This year, with the pandemic, however, things are different. Travel have been scaled down. People have been in lockdown. To curb the rise of coronavirus, the authorities have advised people not to travel and to celebrate the holidays where they work and live. Just over the last couple of weeks, we have been tested for the last 5 times, I would want to say, because Chinese New Year is coming up. And China wants to make sure that it's safe to celebrate the Chinese New Year. In recent years, the spread of the Spring Festival to overseas countries have been accelerating. More and more foreigners send greetings to their Chinese friends for the Spring Festival. The world is becoming more aware of what happens in China. Spring Festival is a significant event for Chinese people. And the influence abroad, outside of China, is really increasing. Some countries now recognize the Spring Festival as a public holiday. Other countries hold various celebrations. Among the Asian countries who celebrate and recognize Chinese New Year as a public holiday are the countries of Vietnam, South Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia. Presently, there are nearly 20 countries and regions that have set Chinese New Year as a nationwide or statewide public holiday. The gap between Chinese and Western cultures is quite vast in many aspects of life. This factor is also particularly relevant when dealing with festivities and traditions. Right? Most Beijing residents will be home for Chinese New Year tonight because they focus on sharing the traditional New Year's Eve family dinner, together. And as I said earlier, today is Chinese New Year's Eve. I would really like to share our experience as foreigners in celebrating Chinese New Year in China with you. You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast platforms. Send your emails to podcast@nacinchina.com. Due to the cultural differences, you might wonder whether foreigners like us can still have the chance of having a proper celebration while being in China. And I want to assure you, yes, we do. Due to the increasing influence from Western countries, traditions here in China, and an ever-increasing foreigner presence, most developed Chinese cities offer a variety of options to make this important event an experience for foreigners. While walking through the main streets of the city, you can easily perceive the festive atmosphere. The street stands, shopping malls, they sell fireworks, and there's all sorts of red envelopes to be filled with cash. And banners marked with traditional New Year greetings is pasted on the front doors of the people's homes. In China, Chinese New Year is basically a family reunion. Chinese New Year this year starts tomorrow, February the 12th, which will mark the start of the year of the ox, and it will last until January the 31st in the year 2022. We are, as foreigners, are typically invited to have fellowship with our Chinese friends and families and join them in making dumplings and other things like steamed bread. Yeah, tonight I'm invited by our Chinese friends to join them for New Year's Eve dinner. And here, the Chinese families will show us how much the practice of making dumplings stems from century-old traditions. We do this every year. A person can feel the wonderful warmth of family during the Spring Festival. Though it may seem like Chinese New Year only revolves around activities of food, that's not so. Whilst we have this celebration with the families, and then we go outside into the neighborhood and we set off, if it's allowed, in the designated areas, fireworks. And fireworks plays a very, very important part of the festivities, and sometimes you might mistake it for a war zone. But this is ultimately the expression of joy and the celebration that every Chinese citizen shares during the Spring Festival. After fireworks, it's traditional for us here in Beijing and other cities in the northern parts of China, like Shenyang, to eat dumplings. This signifies prosperity. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast platforms. Send your emails to podcast@nacinchina.com. Now, some of the things that you will observe in China during the period of the Chinese New Year holidays is, first of all, in these cities, many Chinese people have immigrated to the country's first and second tier cities. That is, cities like Beijing and Shanghai. They're from their rural areas. So during the holiday, they typically return home. So there are many immigrants, people from the rural area, I would want to say, Chinese immigrants, that return to their hometown during this period. Now this leaves the big cities nearly empty in days before and during the holiday. So that's the first thing that you will notice. Cities, the major cities like the city here in Beijing, is empty. And then you also see a lot of domestic tourists. This Chinese New Year holiday season is a popular time for Chinese tourism. There are plenty of family members from smaller areas, from the rural areas, now come to explore the big cities like Shanghai and Beijing with their children. And they might be seeing the tourist sites for the first time. And that is the beauty of China as well. It's so big and so large. Billions of people. That during this period, you find a lot of them coming to the major cities. Right? Also another thing that, as a foreigner, that you become aware of, hotel availability are very scarce. Because there's such a high demand from the Chinese domestic travelers. During this period, many Chinese people go to the local temples to pray and do other activities there. For foreigners like us living here in China, life becomes less convenient as most of the businesses close during these days. The bustling China that we are accustomed to subsides and the streets are empty. I'm always fascinated with the Chinese traditions during Chinese New Year. For example, you're not supposed to clean your house or wash your hair during the first 2 days of the New Year. That is to avoid sweeping away the good luck that comes at that time of year. The third day of the year is when it's easy to get into arguments with other people, so you should avoid going out. It's also customary to wear new clothes, new shoes, new pajamas, and put fresh sheets on the bed on the first day of the Chinese New Year. I've been involved with China for the past 22 years, and it always amazes me of the pride of the Chinese people and how they often enthusiastically celebrate Chinese New Year with foreigners, showing off their traditions. You can expect to see a lot of red lanterns and special decorations around you. Red is a symbol of good luck and prosperity in China, and that's why it's so prevalent during the holiday season. No, Chinese New Year is a time of year that there are a lot of traditions and joy on display. And for the past 22 years, I marveled when I could experience Chinese New Year with my Chinese friends. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast platforms. Send your emails to podcast@nacinchina.com. For the past 22 years, I've seen how China develops faster and faster. I really feel comfortable here. The biggest change that I've seen and observed is that the people from the middle class is beginning to live better. And of course, they are poor, they are rich. The Chinese people are, in principle, very confident of their future. They are sure that the Chinese nation are always behind them. In my opinion, celebrating New Year in China is a lot like my home country, South Africa. The excitement, the celebrations, and of course, the big meals and celebratory drinks are all very familiar and similar. But obviously, everything is big in China. China always tries its best to make foreigners feel at home. Even though sometimes we as foreigners have to adapt our traditions to that of the Chinese, you can be guaranteed of a joyful experience. Being in China for the Chinese New Year is one of the most special and cultural experiences I ever had. Everything about Chinese New Year celebrations serves as a reminder to me of the importance of community in China. And that's a community of which I am proud to be part of. That brings us to the end of this episode. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast platforms. Send your emails to podcast@nacinchina.com. Nakik World Podcast is broadcasted twice weekly, every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Beijing time. I would like to wish you a happy Chinese New Year. Simeon Weiler. Until next time, stay safe, be blessed, till we meet again.